Well, good morning, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know this is a little bit late, but I don't think we have too much material to go over. This particular session right now is an information session, and let me go ahead and share my screen with you. I am recording this session. Looks like we have one person joining us right now, but let's see here, screen one. There you go. Should be able to see a PowerPoint slide. Says School Psychology at TTU Info Sessions. Today's January 31st, 2020. And I'm just going to go over some information to help students begin to prepare for field-based placements. So we'll do a little bit of time here regarding the specialist level practicum. We will follow that in a little bit by a session on the doctoral practicum, the advanced practicum, and then we'll talk a little bit later about the internship, followed by a session on licensure. So feel free to come and go at any time, and I'll get started. And if you have questions, feel free to throw them in there into the chat box, or you can announce yourself, and I'll take questions at any time. So we're going to talk right now about the specialist level practicum in school psychology for next year. Specialist level practicum occurs in the second year of our program, whether that be the master's program or the doctoral program. The specialist level practicum is it's 2 semesters, so it's going to be in the fall and the spring. So during this presentation, I will give you some general guidance, talk to you about some of the activities that are required in the practicum. We'll talk about the practicum evaluation, what you need to be doing next, and then answer any outstanding questions that are left. You can't really see this particular screen real well, but the chart in the middle kind of shows a breakdown of what might be expected in the field during different levels of the specialist practicum, or in the training. And so the first box, and this is from a book called the School Psychology Practicum and Internship Handbook, which was written by Diana Joyce Ballou and Eric Rawson. So during the first year, some programs kind of start off with observations in the school-based setting, doing behavioral observations, kind of acclimating to the school system, looking at tier 2 and 3 interventions, and maybe some curriculum-based measures, those sorts of things, looking at some academic assessments like the Woodcock-Johnson or the Wyatt or KTEA, those kinds of things. We've opted not to do a first year practicum for our specialist students. We feel like that the experiences that they're getting in their introductory classes are sufficient at that time. But we do start embedding our students in school systems beginning in the second year. And so that's kind of what we'll be talking about here. A little bit of general guidance. And if you think about this really for all of your classes, but this is really, kind of pertains to more of the independent type practice classes like 7,000 hours, or in this case, field-based work like practicum. So think about it, when you enroll in 1 hour of graduate course credit, that's considered to correspond to about 1 hour of time in class, although that hour may be devoted to field-based work in the cases of 5392. And then that 1 hour of graduate course credit corresponds to 3 or more hours outside of class devoted to preparation, assignments, and other field-based work, if a student expects to earn an A for their work. So it's just a really good guideline that essentially for every hour that you enroll in a class, if you should expect to spend about 4 hours on that class. So for a class that's a 3-hour class, if you want to earn an A, you should expect to spend about 12 hours a week earning that A with outside readings, projects, and assignments. So for Practicum, which is EPSY 5392, our program requires you to log 14 on-site hours weekly, plus 1 hour weekly in a university-based didactic training during the university semester. Now, during that time, students are engaged in supervisor-assigned and or assignments made by the university practicum instructor in a school setting, in addition to scheduled supervision sessions with the site supervisor and other training activities. So we say that because we want our sites, our students, our supervisors, our instructors to recognize, to acknowledge that the training status of the practicum student, which means that they need to limit really the district's reliance upon that practicum student for the provision of school psychological services. We shouldn't necessarily expect our practicum students to carry a caseload. We shouldn't expect them to fulfill all of the obligations of an LSSP. This is still a training program, and they are under, our students are in training status. We also should recognize, and sites should recognize, that supervisors are our training partners with the university. And so the site should permit supervisors to instruct, to teach, to train students in the best practices, even if those practices are not being utilized in the current district. So we're really trying to train according to a national model and according to national standards. A couple of other points just for general guidance. These assignments that we make, they should, and the assignments that supervisors make should align with the domains and the standards as reflected in the NAS practice model. They should expose the practicum student to the expanded role of the school psychologist in providing comprehensive and integrated school psychological services as described in the practice model. What that really means is we shouldn't necessarily be utilizing our practicum students solely as special education evaluators. And so we should really be looking at a wide range of activities and practices that encompass the role of a school psychologist according to the NASP practice model. A couple other things: students must participate in at least 1 hour of face-to-face, one-to-one supervision with their site supervisor weekly while enrolled in Practicum. That is encapsulated in the 14 hours that we prescribe. And then finally, the purpose of this specialist level practicum is to ensure, to make sure that our candidates are adequately prepared, that they're ready to complete a school psychology internship, which requires a little bit more independence than a practicum does, or to progress to a more advanced doctoral practicum placement. So what do practicum students do? This is a list that we've developed recently to guide the supervisor and the site and the student in kind of knowing what kind of activities they should be incorporated into the practicum. So we want you to complete one or more assessment case that utilizes cognitive measures appropriately, which are designed to solve an educational student-centered problem. We want you to complete one or more assessment evaluation cases that utilizes achievement measures appropriately designed to solve an educational problem. And that can be in the same case. That doesn't have to be two unique cases. That could be in the same case. You should develop and implement one or more student-delivered academic achievement interventions. You need to monitor progress, student progress during that intervention. And then students and their supervisors are encouraged then to seek opportunities for that requirement via the campus or the district instructional leadership teams. Complete one or more assessment or evaluation cases that utilizes appropriate personality and social emotional measures designed to solve an educational and a student-centered problem. So you get the theme here. We really want you looking into a problem-solving process rather than a diagnostic-making process. Complete one or more assessment evaluation cases that utilize appropriate measures to assess for autism. Complete one or more assessment cases utilizing techniques and measures that are appropriate to conduct an FBA and to develop a BIP. Monitor that progress. Modify the plan if need be. And then lastly on this slide, develop and implement one or more student-targeted social and life skill interventions and monitor progress. This is the last slide of activities. Implement one or more interventions to address a student or a staff crisis, providing follow-up. It's understood. We recognize that not all practicum students may have the opportunity to consult and to respond to a very violent crisis or a natural disaster or something that's very intense. However, what may be a crisis to one person may not be a crisis to another person. And so, for instance, you know, playground accident and injury or a suicidal threat could be considered to be a crisis. So this may mean working with your district-based counselors, campus-based counselors, or social workers in order to identify some of those scenarios and situations. Next is to meaningfully participate in case and intervention conceptualization, implementation, and monitoring for one or more counseling cases throughout the semester. Develop and deliver one or more tier 2 or a small group intervention throughout the semester. Again, provide follow-up, make modifications, monitor the progress. We want you to consult with a parent, guardian, caregiver concerning the implementation of one or more educationally relevant interventions in the home settings. We make a lot of recommendations and suggestions for things that could be done in the home setting, and so this is an opportunity to work with those families to implement those interventions. Consistently contribute relevant information in a multidisciplinary team via written and verbal communication, and then finally use the 8-step decision-making process in one or more supervision sessions. And all of our students should have gone through that 8-step decision-making process when they took EPSY 5390, which is your ethics and best practices, legal and in content of school psychology. All right, that's a lot of information. Essentially, what those activities does is it allows you as the student and the supervisor at the end of the semester to rate your performance. We have a practicum evaluation that has now been used for 10 years that we've been collecting data on, and we are noticing that some of our students are not getting a very broad or comprehensive experience. And so the purpose of the activity list is to expand that role a little bit more from the traditional role of the school psychologist. So at the end of each semester, the site supervisor, the practicum student, they complete an evaluation, separate evaluations, and that helps to assess the student's competencies that we use to monitor how effective our program is, that student completes and develops and performs throughout the semesters. Students are rated on a scale of 1 to 5, and that kind of goes from a 1, meaning student is not independent and not ready for internship, all the way up to 5, student can perform this activity with complete independence and very minimal supervision. And so if you're ever rated with a 1 or a 2 on any activity, students do not receive course credit for the semester. And so what we're trying to do there is we're really trying to promote the independence and readiness for an internship. So if you'd like to take a look at that evaluation, the practicum students and site supervisors can review that evaluation at the link here included, and I will send out this PowerPoint presentation to everybody at the end of the day so that you can go back and refer to it. You'll also, this session is being recorded, so you can refer to the meeting later. And then so one of the things that we would suggest you doing is taking a look at that evaluation in the rear of the handbook, of the field placement handbook, so you can kind of see how you're going to be evaluated each semester and what kind of activities that you need to be looking for opportunities to pursue so that your supervisor does have the ability to evaluate you on that activity. Next steps and questions. Well, first, make sure you're obtaining your A's and your B's in all your coursework. If you've made a C in anything, then you're going to have to retake that course, which delays your enrollment in Practicum. If you're currently working in a school district, you need to start having some conversations with your supervisors, with 504 staff, special ed staff, other school psychologists about completing your practicum requirements within your district. I've seen some districts who didn't really know that our students were enrolled in our program, and they've been very creative in creating positions and making allowances for our students to complete this work, because it's very helpful to the district, in addition to a training opportunity to kind of grow your own school psychologists in the district. If you're not currently working in a school district or in an educational setting, you need assistance locating a placement. Schedule a meeting with me very, very soon so that we can start discussing what our options are and locating a placement for you, okay? If you are working at a site right now, ensure that that site has access to a school psychologist that holds the LSSP and is available to provide that supervision for you. We'll talk a little bit later about what supervision is and what the roles of a supervisor are, because supervision is not just having a supervisor. It is actually a very structured experience that needs some guidelines. So make sure that there is somebody there who has the experience to do so and is willing to do so. Then, once you get that arranged, schedule a meeting with me, with the site supervisor and any other required parties or that we can have in order to address any kind of questions and agreements. Like to do that before spring break. I know that that's not always going to happen, but that's what I would prefer. And then finally, be sure to make all A's and B's in your classes. I know you guys are great students, and you'll do that. So let me pause right there and allow a time for questions. You can either ask them out loud or put them in the chat